business and your office for making this event possible and for your support of it. And also I would like to thank Dean Fisher of our law school because he's also part of this. And we've never had an event like this, part of this Best in Biz series, where both the College of Law and the College of Business have come together. So thank you for your support. I also want to thank the administration and the professors at both colleges, not just for showing up, but also for encouraging our students to be here. I also want to welcome our undergrad business students, our MBA students, and our law students, alumni of Cleveland State University, leaders of greater Cleveland community, as well as people coming in and chiming in from all over the country. And last but not least, a big shout out to Heather and Chris. Thank you so much. As I always say, you make the world spin. And now I'm going to introduce our two panelists. It is such a pleasure and honor to have these two individuals in the room with us right now. Their bios are incredible. We could spend an entire hour just discussing what they've done. For the purpose of time, I will share with you the highlight reel of the highlight reel. And what I will say is they are both extraordinary men who've made extraordinary contributions to our community. And the other thing that I will say is that as I share with you their bios, just please know this is just the highlights. There's so much more to what they do. I have written a log line or a summary of what I think they truly encompass. Their character is impeccable. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. Their character is truly impeccable. So we'll start with Todd Quaid, who is corporate strategist and advisor at Sheffield Pharmaceuticals. And here's my log line for Todd: big picture business strategist, successfully integrates law, business acumen, marketing, and entertainment to develop and sell award-winning and profitable products, services, and ideas. He is such a propeller of both products and people, and has probably the best business etiquette of any human being I've ever interacted with in my life, and that is true. Background for education: he graduated from Boston University with a Bachelor of Arts, and he was magna cum laude. Earned his law degree here in Cleveland at Case Western Reserve University's Law School. And he has a very diverse career. And just for the purpose of our event today, I wanted to just break it up into three pillars, if you will: law, business, and entertainment. For law, he is part of the Ohio State Bar Association. He's a licensed and trial attorney in good standing, and he's also won a 7-figure verdict. He's also set legal precedent with a case of Klein Becker USA LLC versus Product Quest Manufacturing. And he's also a leader in contract negotiations and negotiated a Product Quest sale to private equity. Todd built on this legal background to really grow business in a big, big way. So for business growth and marketing, he formed Product Quest, a store brand manufacturer that had presentation at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Ulta Beauty, and other retailers, and was recognized as Vendor of the Year at both CVS and Walgreens, which is very prestigious. He launched industry-changing brands, including Purell and the Spin Brush, and the first at-home cholesterol test-taking kit, Cholestrack. He created Sex Brothers formulations, which acquired and revitalized Quinsana's Athlete's Foot antifungus powder in May 2015. He relaunched the brand in CVS and then sold the brand in 2018 at a profit of 9 times the purchase price. And then the entertainment, which are his passion projects, and he's so successful with them. He's founder of Ezzy Films, and he wrote, produced, and directed in 2007 an award-winning documentary called Chasing Gus's Ghost. It featured John Sebastian of the Lovin' Spoonfuls, Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead, and other legendary folk rock performers. And he shot the film not just here in the United States, but also in Canada, Sweden, and Japan. He's also founder of Kingswood Records, and he founded a music production firm, ushering in the return of folk music as a popular art form, and created 4 other successful music documentaries combining his love of film and of music. Todd is also very active in the community, sits on various boards, and somehow finds the time to support both local organizations as well as the people he believes in. Welcome, Todd. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you. And now it is my honor to introduce Judge Brandon Sheehan, Administrative and Presiding Judge, Common Pleas Court at Cuyahoga County. And Judge, I've written a log line for you, so hopefully this is to your satisfaction. He is a judge of the people and for the people. He fights injustice, offers transparency to the courts, and brings together diverse audiences for discourse. You are the great unifier. Education, Baldwin Wallace Universities, where the judge earned his bachelor's degree, and he earned his law degree here at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, and also has a master's in judicial studies at University of Nevada. And I will break up his career in both the law, but then also when he earned his seat on the bench. He was Chief Law Clerk, United States District Court, Northern District for Judge Donald Nugent. He was also civil practice at Brown and Margulis, and then Assistant Cuyahoga County Prosecutor, Major Trial Unit. And the judge was chairman and founder of some extraordinary organizations, including the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, as well as the Legal Committee for the National Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And then the bench. In 2008, the judge began his career as a trial judge for the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court. And after a decade, he was elected by his peers in 2019 to the administrative bench. And this is when somebody gets very much tested in their careers, is when a crisis happens and how do they manage it. And when the judge took his bench, guess what was right around the corner? COVID. And it was a challenging time for so many of us, but here's what the judge did. He rose in that chaos. And here's some of his major accomplishments. He arranged the first ever Saturday court proceedings, began using Zoom for certain hearings, worked out plea deals to help with overcrowded jails, negotiated county lease to hold trials in the Global Center for Health Innovation. And then the race riots occurred. Again, no simple time in Cleveland or America's history. He moved only with emergency hearings. And the most important thing he did is he sat down with local leaders for straight talk discussions, and the people wanted to sit down with him, which again is absolutely incredible at a time of such great chaos that was happening, and still it continues to occur. And then in September 2021, the judge was elected to second term as chief jurist and begins his new term in January. Congratulations, Judge. Congratulations. And then as far as the community, he still has time to do things. And I don't know when you have the time to do all this, but it's absolutely amazing. Member of the Collaborative to End Human Trafficking, trustee, the Ohio Common Pleas Judges Association, committee chairperson, Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas Case Flow Committee, member, Ohio Jury Instructions Committee, and the recipient of the Moms for Ohio Child Safety Award for Protecting Children. I can personally thank you for that one. And here's what's absolutely phenomenal is right here in October of 2021, Lee Fisher inducted Judge Sheehan into the Cleveland Marshall Law Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Judge. And thank you for coming back home to CSU. And we are thrilled and honored to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Alex, and thank you. It's an honor to be with Todd also. So I look forward to sharing any thoughts and insights we have, and it's nice to be back home, as you said, with our Cleveland State friends.
Wonderful. So the way that today's event will go is I will ask you some questions about some major categories. And then at the end, we should have about 5 to 7 minutes of Q&A for our audience. So let's just dive right in. Over the past 5 years or so, what are the 2 or 3 biggest technology-driven shifts that you have seen? And also, how does the legal community respond to these ever-shifting technology changes?
Well, I'll start maybe from my perspective, and obviously all of this has accelerated during COVID-19, but the retail world obviously has converted to a digital world. I would include in retail not only Amazon, Walmart, but I'd also include financial services, people being forced to interact digitally on that. Also advertising, which really pays for the digital world. Facebook, for example, is $1 trillion company in annual revenues, and it's advertising. It's by accumulating private data on people, people are able to target ads, and it makes them more effective than the old shotgun of approach of doing a television commercial on a, where somebody may have no interest in your product. And last but not least, telehealth, telemedicine. All of this was in the works prior to COVID-19, but now it's converted and is becoming part of life. All of these issues raise a privacy problem. For health, there is something called HIPAA, which is called the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, for a large name, but HIPAA is meant to secure private, sensitive medical records. But other things are not covered, and a lot of the things that we're here today to discuss are emerging as big problems because of privacy.
I have to agree with Todd on that. I mean, definitely retail has expanded what formerly local businesses to potential global business information. And I have a neighbor who has a small business, just did local work, and within the last 3 or 4 years, now it's global. I mean, everything is global. Her customers are global. And the thing we've learned here in courts is remote everything. Almost everything can be accomplished without in-person interaction, which is great for some, but scary for others. And so remote everything has been a big thing. And one other thing you didn't mention, Todd, I think I was just thinking about it, is cybersecurity. With all this access to everything, it's cybersecurity has become a big business too. It's something that we start hearing about. And how do you protect oneself from someone taking your information and hacking you, for example? So I think those are the biggest areas in the last 3 to 5 years that I've seen from my perspective here on the bench.
Thank you, gentlemen. For nearly a decade, we've been hearing that content is king. In the commercial entertainment universe specifically, every creative decision is made around IP, intellectual property, such as the Marvel Universe or the Star Wars legacy. Here's my 2-part question to both of you, both from a legal and creative standpoint. For content creators who don't have Disney's legal budget, what can we do to better protect our IP? And also, how do we balance socializing and commercializing our ideas and finished products without risking a bigger fish will lift and then profit off of our work?
Well, since I make arguably entertainment content, I'll start. It's a double-edged sword. We like to get our content out there so people discover emerging artists. So I have a record label, and some of those artists are emerging, and we're trying to build a fan base. So the internet is great for that. The problem is it's also a home for constant infringement. It's easy to copy and to distribute things. Brendan and I, Judge Sheehan and I, actually did a film together called Truth is the Only Client, which you can stream, about the assassination of President Kennedy and the Warren Commission. One of our local judges, Bert Griffin, was on the commission and on the staff. And I found out about 2 weeks ago that a Russian site is offering to watch the film for free. Now, part of me is kind of happy because, more people will see the movie. Other part of it is I'm not going to get the 5-cent royalty I normally get. So it's a double-edged sword. Content, though, and IP always exists, whether there's the internet or not. There's really several different kinds. There's a patent, which is an invention, and that has to be filed with the patent office. There's a trademark, which, like a name, Coca-Cola would be a trademark, or even a sound like the NBC chimes is a trademark that basically indicate the origin of the product. And the copyright, which is more of what we're talking about here, which is a poem, a story, a movie, a song, all of that is copyrighted. And the essence of copyright law is it has to be in a tangible form. So as soon as you write it out, it's a copyright. You don't have to file it with the Copyright Office, but if you do, it gives you added protections, and it's worth doing. It's also, I think, important to protect yourself anytime you do distribute something that is a copyright, whether I put a song up on YouTube or a clip of a film, to indicate when you distribute that this is under copyright, so that no one can claim ignorance. Again, with the internet sort of emerging as the Wild West and regulations and laws coming up around it, initially YouTube put up a lot of things that didn't seem to police whatsoever whether or not it was under copyright. But enough people complained, litigation was filed, and now if you claim to YouTube, for example, this is a copyrighted piece, they don't have permission, they'll take it down. So it's emerging over time. And I think everybody that puts the sweat of creating an invention, a piece of art, or a brand needs to protect that.
Yeah, it sounds, here we are, the lawyers and the judging coming out here, but I mean, I have to say, document everything. As much as you think about it, what you put out there, just assume it's going to be used by another unless you document it. And, I think Todd said it great, but you got to register. If you put pen to paper, you make this creation, document it, must register to get it, to get damages. Here I am talking law now. If someone did take something of yours and violated the copyrights, you can get damages for it, but you got to prove what harm it's caused you. However, if you registered it, you actually could get statutory damages, which are, I believe, $150,000 per infringement. So you can, if you think about it, it might pay to register what's going on. But as Todd said, the YouTube, if you put watermark, if you're into photography and you find an image and you take a picture of it, watermark it, put something out there that preserves it so it can't be used by someone, because ultimately what happens out there is it's going to get used. And I've heard nightmare stories of different folks who create it, put pen to paper, and all of a sudden read it on the Wall Street Journal, and their ideas have been stolen. So be smart about it and document. And if you don't know anything and you don't want to do anything, make friends with a good IP lawyer and have them at your on speed dial, because you just want to make sure you protect yourself. And I mean, that's the, if you get one thing out of all of us here, protect yourself and do something to document your hard work and your creative ideas.
I appreciate that. And just for clarity, so that everyone understands, can you please explain by register what that means?
For copyrights are relatively simple to register. You could actually do it online. I just actually online did the copyright for Truth Is the Only Client about a year ago. So even a film, in the old days, you had to send them a print of the movie. Now you can give them a link, and that does it. It's not adversarial. They don't deny a copyright. So it's a simple thing to do. All you have to do is go to the website, look it up, and you do not necessarily need a lawyer for that. A trademark is harder because you're going to be questioned if the trademark or trade name is in conflict with somebody else, or it's also something that may be too generic. The best trademarks are ones that are sort of arbitrary, that kind of create a secondary meaning, like Kleenex. Kleenex doesn't say it's a tissue, but it became, synonymous with blowing your nose and paper tissue. So that kind of a thing. So you probably should use a lawyer for a trademark, particularly if it's something that you are spending money to create that trade name. A patent is very complicated because that's an invention, requires scientific reporting data, and that is, like a trademark law, something that you will get questioned by a patent examiner, and you need the expertise for that.
Thank you.
And that's the most expensive of the three.
Gotcha.
Have a good IP lawyer.
Yes, and hopefully a good friend.
Yeah, I always tell my students always have a good lawyer and a good accountant at your side. So let's talk a little bit now about privacy. I know we barely touched upon it, but I will share some information, and then I would really like your input on this. So with social media, the internet, between posts, likes, face and location tagging, check-ins, comments, restaurant reviews, purchase records, search history, keyword email scanning, and simply talking within the proximity of smart devices, we've essentially given away all of our privacy. The Internet of Things big data machine, that's my term for the combination of all of it, collects, aggregates, sorts, and sells all of our behavioral observations to big business and political consultants. It is only continuing to grow. And I'm going to ask 3 questions here, and I would welcome the 2 of you to chime in on any aspect of this, which is, what can citizens do to protect themselves better? Is being completely off the grid our only option, and is it a realistic option? And Judge, you have led the national fight against child trafficking, which relies heavily on the internet for much of its nefarious activity, with minors spending ever-increasing time on devices, both at school and at home. What advice would you give to families about protecting their kids? So there's 3 heavy questions in here, but it's essentially, how can we protect ourselves as adults? And then also, how can we protect the kids?
Todd, I'll let you go first and I'll chime in.
Yeah, and frankly, what Judge Sheehan did with pornography and children is probably the most poignant example of what could go awry with the free internet that we have today. I'm always curious. The right to privacy comes up a lot, and ironically, when you debate it with constitutional lawyers, it doesn't appear in the Constitution itself. So it does appear in the amendments. The right to worship, the right to against search and seizure, the right to keep soldiers from living in your house. These are things that are enumerated. And then I think in the 1920s, that began to get expanded via the 14th Amendment, which is our Liberty Amendment, the right to liberty. And that gave at least the courts the way of looking at it, that there is a bit of a sanctity to the home, and you can do that in raising your children with respect to procreation, and those lines of cases led to ones that we all know about today, like Roe versus Wade, and Griswold versus Connecticut, which was the contraception case in Connecticut. So this has emerged, but right now it's still within the social network. It's not really clear as to what rights we have. We know for medical, there's HIPAA. There is for banking, there is statutes that protect online transactions. And the Supreme Court, in a recent case called Carpenter versus the United States, said that you do need a search warrant for a telephone. If somebody gets stopped for a speeding ticket and you want to take their phone, you need probable cause. You need to get a search warrant to do it. So there is a right to privacy for our devices, at least from a criminal standpoint. But right now there is something pending, and it was introduced as a bipartisan bill by John Kennedy from Louisiana, who's a Republican, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, who is a Democrat, and it's called the Social Media Privacy Protection and Consumer Rights Act of 2021. It was introduced in May of 2021, so it's a new bill, and it's meant to provide safeguards so that when you buy something from a store, that data is not sold. Because I think you're right, Alex, in your question about whether or not being off the grid is the only way out of this. I really think you're right. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. Everybody's pushing us into it. Our banks, our employers, the airlines, the sports tickets. So I don't think that's going to happen. So this law is extremely important. I also think there's a little bit of a heads up with the appointments from the Biden administration. There's an FTC commissioner nominee, Alvaro Bendoya, who is at Georgetown, and he is the founding director of Georgetown's Law Center on Privacy and Technology. He has not been confirmed, but his nomination hearings will be happening in the next few weeks, I believe. So that's a telling sign that everybody knows that this bill has to be addressed, and the FTC is probably one of the organizations that will handle it. Also, the whistleblower, Frances Haugen, who is the person who worked at Facebook and has basically alerted everybody to the problems. All of that's coming through the Securities and Exchange Commission because Facebook is a public company. Their statements are investigated and subject to scrutiny. Also, that particular Dodd-Frank bill allows whistleblowers protection for taking documents. And Francis took a whole bunch of documents showing that Facebook's been aware of the problem and aware of posts going to people who are inflamed about political issues and fueling the fire with more things to set them off. And they've been doing it because the more engagement they get, the higher their advertising fees goes. So this is all emerging right now, and I think
Todd, if I can jump in real quick.
Yes,
one of the things you mentioned when you're talking about Amy Klobuchar, I actually met her back when I was a prosecutor, talking about the dangers of the internet, and I got her ear talking about when she was a prosecutor in Minnesota, trying to get her to be part of our national task force. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Without legislation, there isn't much an end user can do. We can ask apps, and we can, all the apps on our phone, not to track us and don't collect background information. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't work. And let's be honest, as much as we think it's working, it's not working. And I think that I think one thing we have to say to ourselves when we decide to go into this world of social media, we're making a choice, and you're giving up something. And again, without legislation, I don't believe there's much an end user can do in that regard.
There is a Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which came out a few years ago, but that leads into what Judge Sheehan's work on all of this, because he did seminal work in this area.
Yeah, well, when you look at the back in the day, I used to start when I was the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. I was on the national board there, and one of the things that we had to do is education and just educating parents about what the dangers of the internet were. And this is before Al Gore discovered the internet. So this is right around that time. So you understand where I was in that time frame of where the internet was. But when you look at what we used to go out and, we'd get these cases and they'd keep coming. It was just like, it was unbelievable, the amount of crime that was being committed on the internet, and specifically harm to children, what people are trying to harm our children. So I started going out and educating kids about the dangers of the internet. And I used to give a simple example, and it's probably useful today even, saying to young kids, look at, when you go to the mall, when you go to Tower City, you go to Beechwood Place, you go to Crocker Park, do you wear a tag on your jacket that says, hi, my name is Brendan, I'm 12 years old, my parents don't come home till 6 o'clock, and this is what I like? I mean, you don't do that. And we started from that premise to say, when you post personal information about yourself out there, that someone is looking at it, and not everybody on the internet is truthful, and not everyone wants to be your friend. There are actually there's some people out there who are out there trying to harm you. And then as we kept doing this, I spoke at a school one day, and a young man comes up to me and says, this is what's going on with him. And all of a sudden we realized he's been communicating with another friend via Xbox now, and trying to lure himself in to get this young kid to leave his house. I mean, these are just the stories I tell from those days when I was the director of that task force. But then we started to develop into more. Everybody has a cell phone now. Everybody has a phone, and every kid has a phone, and everyone's using the phone to share texts and Facebook and Snapchats and everything else that has now developed since when I started. And the one thing I always tell these my kids, my friends' kids now who are their kids, is that do not give up your password. Don't let someone take over your accounts. And I guess it's just part of growing up. You know, we can buy all the apps in the world to try to protect our kids from this, but unless we have that heart-to-heart communication with them, we're never going to get it done. And it's just like giving a kid the keys to the car. You got to trust them, and you got to be able to you give them that trust, and you hope that they've taken all your advice. When you know it's developed, I know I could talk about sexting and posting, and now it's videos. Every kid thinks they're cool when they do videos on Barstool. I just learned about Barstool in a case recently. Some kid met someone on Barstool, and next thing you know, they're commenting about things in classrooms, and it's scary. So the bottom line, if I can give one message here, is just communicate with our young generation so they understand what they're putting out there is not always going to be, you're never going to be able to get it back, and someone is out there that wants to harm you, and don't put yourself or your family at risk. So if that's one message I tell you about the issue with the internet and how to protect your kids, that would be my 2-minute answer to that. That could be 10 hours.
Well, thank you so much. And I know that also Shaquille O'Neal joined you on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was a big Shaquille O'Neal. I'll tell one quick story. Shaquille O'Neal, since we got a Cleveland Cavs team that's doing decent, although they lost yesterday, Todd. We know when the Cleveland Cavs had LeBron James here, they traded for Shaquille O'Neal, and the first person he called when he came to Cleveland was me. He actually, I taught him in a class in Florida, and he wanted to be an undercover agent working. He was a deputized sheriff. So he comes to the courthouse, doesn't have anyone with him but himself, comes in my office. I think my office is pretty big, but I think he sat at the very back end and his legs hit the front of my desk. And we just talked, and he became a member of that task force. And he, even to this day, he still communicates and wants to do stuff to just educate young folks about what's going on in the internet and the dangers. So anyways, great. Thanks for reminding me of that Shaq story. But he's a great guy and a great advocate for protecting children.
Well, thank you for your work on this and for the pragmatic advice. Communication is absolutely essential. It boils down to common sense, which unfortunately there's less and less of these days. So you both touched upon Facebook. I've got some stats here. One is from businessofapps.com. The other one is from backlinko.com. So Facebook right now, they're calling themselves Meta. They're all about virtual reality. As far as the present goes, Facebook Instant Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Facebook generated $85.9 billion in revenue in 2020. Approximately 60 billion came just from the Facebook app. Quote, also, Facebook currently has 2.9 billion monthly active users, or they call them MAUs. Our global population is $7.8 billion, or 7.8 billion people, excuse me. That means 37% of our planet at any given time during the month is on Facebook. So let me just reiterate, 37% of our global planet is on Facebook during the month. The company has been, as you know, under tremendous legal scrutiny, everything from privacy issues to inconsistencies in their member compliance, and at a time of great political division and a global health crisis, is also being blamed for spreading lies and hate. And Todd, you had also referred to the fact that they actually, it's been proven, they generate more revenue when there are messages and comments that are about lies and hate, because that's where the arguments begin. And that way they get more traffic. And my understanding, I don't know this for a fact, but my understanding is they would promote those arguments over things that are more peaceful to generate that revenue. So a couple of questions for both of you here. And I completely understand that this is very loaded. We may not have all the answers, but from your perspectives, what are your thoughts about one person having so much global power and influence? And also, will Zuckerberg and his lawyers continue to run ahead of the law, or is there an end game for Facebook?
I'll start off first on that, Todd, and then you can join in. It's scary. It really is scary. It is clearly a danger, and I think Congress is trying to address it now. But you think about it, it started out this big Facebook protocol, businesses advertise in it, and it's just gotten so out of control. How do we unwind that? I mean, people are relying on that. Businesses are relying on that. Companies monitor it for content and advertising, and it's so big. It's like, now, how do you peel it back? And I don't know the answer unless Congress has some great ideas on it. I don't know if there's much we can do to unwind it. Todd, I don't know if you have thoughts.
Yeah, and it's a problem. This should have begun to be addressed a number of years ago. It started with the 2016 presidential election and the Cambridge Analytical scandal. I think that was the first to sort of punch a hole in the Facebook model. And Alex, you're absolutely right. Frances Haugen, who is the whistleblower, she was on 60 Minutes. You can find that on YouTube, her interview. But she's raised some scary things. It appears they absolutely, in an effort to increase engagement, which increases advertising revenues, went to people who were inflamed by things, and they continued to stoke that fire. I think we saw that again on the January 6th insurrection earlier this year. So it's a big problem. I do think it's unraveling now. I think there's an end game, and I think the change in administration is a big part of it. The good thing is the first bill that we talked about with John Kennedy and Amy Klobuchar, that is bipartisan. It has support from both Republicans and Democrats. I think everybody recognizes that this is not good from a right to privacy standpoint, and also from just a general safety standpoint in the United States. The internet's a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. Brendan and I, in our film about President Kennedy's assassination, we've met quite a few of them, and they continue to engage with each other now daily. Back when 40 years ago, they had to send each other letters, etc. So you're able to find like people, and if someone's really inflamed about something, you're able to really perpetuate that by sending them more and more and more. And what it appears to have happened by Facebook is that they did it by greed. It increases the revenues. But I do think it's unraveling now. I think this new nominee for the FTC is obviously focused on that. The other legal issue that Facebook presents is an antitrust issue. Now, I hesitate to say that because even though I've never been an expert on antitrust law, it seems like over the years, things as far as enforcement have gotten a lot looser. And enforcement has not been what it might have been at other times in our history. I think that's changing. One of the commissioners right now, it's Lena Khan, was a Columbia professor who's an expert on antitrust law, who wrote a scathing article before she was appointed about the antitrust aspects of Amazon. So these large digital companies are under tremendous scrutiny, and I think they will be, from a monopoly antitrust standpoint, I think you're going to start seeing some of them broken up. That may not be bad for the investors, by the way. I mean, it's just separate companies. But I think everybody now realizes, to Brendan's point, we got a really big problem. And all of this reminds me, there was a play in the 50s, and it's been remade into movies, called Inherit the Wind. And it's about the Scopes monkey trial, where a teacher in Cleveland, Tennessee, John Scopes, in 1925 was teaching evolution. And that was against a state statute. You couldn't teach anything that contradicted creation as depicted in the Bible. And it was a sensational trial with Clarence Darrow defending him and William Jennings Bryan prosecuting him. And as in the play, when the Clarence Darrow character, they call him Henry Drummond in the play, looks at the jury, he says something that's always struck me. Progress has never been a bargain. You have to pay for it. Sometimes I think there's a man who sits behind a counter and says, all right, you can have a telephone, but you lose privacy and the charm of distance. Mister, you may conquer the air, but the birds will lose their wonder and the clouds will smell of gasoline. So there's always this sort of, you have to pay up at a certain point and deal with some of the advancements we've made. And I think we've hit that point right now. The political aspects and the dangers of Facebook recently have become a true reality. Instagram, which is one of the Facebook apps, according to Frances Haugen, has led, and they know about it, a number of young women, teenagers, to suicide and to eating disorders, and I think the regulation and legislation will begin to happen starting now.
No, I appreciate that. Oh, Judge, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Todd. I mean, do you think, how does this world survive without Facebook? I mean, if we unravel it, we take it apart. I mean, what does that do to our economy? What does that do to the business?
Yeah.
I mean, so how much do we, I mean, that's a huge issue, but I mean, can we survive without it? I mean, I guess we could go to TikTok. That's my kid's new thing, right?
I don't think
TikTok has its own issues.
Yeah.
It has its own privacy issues. Yes. Go ahead, Todd.
I don't think it's going to disappear, Facebook. I mean, if we look at it from its origins, it was meant to be a social networking thing. And there are many good things about it. We get to connect to people we might not necessarily want to call up all the time and see how they're doing and see how their children are doing. And we get to share nice, happy news without having to interact with people directly. So there's lots of positive things about it. You can learn things from it. You can get, I mean, I get a lot of stuff on history. I'm a history buff. So, things that obviously they're tracking me and they say, well, he likes this. We'll send him something on Theodore Roosevelt. But I do think now that we have to, that the regulatory community will kick in and begin to address these things. I don't ever see it going away, nor do I think it should. I think we need to clean up where the chips fell here, because this was a new world. And
I can tell you from the criminal world, Facebook has helped the law enforcement solve millions of crimes. I mean, after someone commits a crime, they post on Facebook, believe it or not, and law enforcement monitors it. I can't tell you how many subpoenas or warrants I signed for Facebook content so they can solve crimes. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, not just crimes here in Cleveland. I'm talking about crimes across the country. It's unbelievable. The scams and the people stealing stuff and showing it on Facebook or TikTok or wherever event they go to. And it's a amazing tool for law enforcement. At least it's made police and law enforcement's jobs a lot easier too. It never ends.
Yeah. And just to
Hey,
back
by
up.
the way, on that same note, I have to give one story, Alex.
Yeah.
Just the other day, we talk about technology, and somebody found from Facebook the ancestry.com. Everybody wants to know the history of their family, who's related to who and how they're related. And one gentleman, a defendant, wanted to know he heard a story. He wants to find out if he has relatives somewhere. So he goes to ancestry.com and he goes through the process. All learned through Facebook, all on this internet site. All of a sudden, I get a search warrant for ancestry.com. And I'm like, what are you guys looking for? And we're like, well, Judge, we have a 1970s cold case that we're trying to resolve, and we're trying to get his DNA. I'm like, well, we can't find him, but we do know that through the internet and through Facebook, he actually was looking for ancestry.com, and you have to submit, I guess, DNA to be partaken at. So they're looking for his DNA sample. So they went to ancestry.com to figure out to solve a cold case. I mean, talk about technology and how the internet has been just used in every aspect of the world.
Right. It's almost like what is that law? For every action, there's an equal reaction.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing. And let's not forget that the origin story of Facebook was, a guy who was dumped who wanted to compare the attractiveness of college co-eds. Right. That's how that started. So we kind of know like the morality DNA of that program to begin with. So, we've talked about some very serious and heavy topics. One of the things that I really admire about both of you, even with everything you've seen and done in your lives, you're both tremendous optimists. And we do have a lot of students and young people and recent graduates, and even people who want to shift careers who are part of our audience today, because we have a pretty significant audience. I would like to know from both of your perspectives, given everything that you've done, not just through your work, but through your service, and you're also both men of families, you have children and wives. What advice would you give to our current undergrad and MBA business students? And what advice would you also give to our law students, as well as recent alumni of both?
I'll go first, and then you could go, Todd. How's that? I think I've been thinking about this question, and what advice would I give a business student or a law student? And the first thing I would tell you is when I became a lawyer a long time ago, old lawyers grabbed a book and said, hey, don't get lost in all these books. Be creative. Keep your creativity going. And I didn't at that time get what he meant at that time, but you have to keep your creative mind going. You can't just get locked into the black and white law and this is what we have, or business students, this is what I have. To be creative. Keep being creative. And as a lawyer, not only keeping that creativity going, but how to protect and help your clients during that creativity, and what you can do to protect your friends and your family. I mean, those things, if you think about it, those are the things that make some great laws over the years and great issues over the time. And if we lose that creativity, if we don't keep that creativity going, we're gonna be okay with, I guess we're just stuck with Facebook. I guess we're just stuck with what we have. And when I see young lawyers just kind of in the doldrums walking down the halls of the Justice Center, I grab them, I said, what are you doing? I always ask, what book are they reading? And they look at me like I'm crazy. Keep that creative mind going. Keep reading fiction. Keep reading just things to keep you going. Don't get caught in the doldrums of the world we feel like we're trapped in. So that's my advice.
Thank you for that, Todd.
I couldn't agree more. You're right. I think both of us are optimists because I think that's how we move the world forward. Brendan and I worked with Vince Bugliosi. People might remember him, the esteemed prosecutor of Charles Manson, the writer of Helter Skelter. He was an expert on the Kennedy assassination. And he used to say, no matter how thin I make my pancakes, there's always two sides. And I like that. And I think that's an important lesson for lawyers. So for a business person or a business student, these are all new businesses. You know, Judge Sheehan mentioned cybersecurity. That's a whole business. As far as advertising, retailing, all of these are new businesses. So they present a tremendous amount of new opportunities. And he's right. Being creative, always thinking of what's next, is a way to, certainly from a business perspective and an entrepreneurial perspective, to take advantage of the technology and to begin to utilize it. I mean, I could tell you this from a singer-songwriter standpoint, back in the 60s and 70s, you had to have a record deal. You didn't get a record deal, nothing happened. Now today, you could pretty much make your own record. You could distribute it yourself. And yes, you could find a fan base. Does it reach the level of what it was when you appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show in the 60s? No, but it's a way of beginning to harvest things. And it's a way of making a living at something that at one time you might have been completely barred from doing. From a legal perspective, lawyers deal with problems, preventing them and solving them. And all of this presents a whole litany of things that require lawyers, whether it's from a regulatory standpoint, a damages standpoint, an IP standpoint. These are all going to continue. So I think these remain robust industries. I do know that some lawyers don't like the internet because it's taken away basic, simple tasks like writing wills and things like that. There is some truth to that. But again, most people who do that exclusively end up tripping over themselves because they'll miss something that a seasoned lawyer based on experience and education will catch. And so I think it's all gonna fit in at some point. And we are living, for these reasons, through very interesting times.
And one other comment is, I can't tell you how many times in my career I've been told, no, we can't do that, or no, this won't work. And if I listened to all those people who said no, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So I really mean it. So keep plugging away. You're gonna fall. There's gonna be roadblocks for whatever reason. People are gonna roadblock you. They're not gonna want you to succeed, or they don't like your idea, or they don't think you're capable. But you got to believe in yourself and keep that confidence that your ideas and your thoughts they do fit, and just have to keep selling it and keep plugging along. So
that's fantastic advice from both of you. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the Q&A right now. We do have a gratitude message from one of our watchers right now, so thank you for that. I'm going to open up the Q&A, and while we're waiting for some questions to pop in, I've got a couple more questions. They're a little bit off script, if you will, but I think they would be very appreciated by our audience, which is, how do you overcome a professional obstacle?
I'll let Todd go first, since I've been talking.
We'll start with you.
There is no magic to this. This has happened from life and learning through experience. I try to wake up the next morning with the feeling that it's going to be a new, fresh day. And sometimes, and quite often, what was an obstacle the other day has now given me a different lens to view it in. And I either put it in its proper place or I move on. I honestly think that as somebody who survives in law, business, that's imperative. Secondly, again, this is what Judge Sheehan said. I believe you have to have an optimistic point of view. As a younger person, there were times where, even in law, and I practiced law for 10 years, that I would get disillusioned. I don't think I would do that now. I think that life has taught me things do work out. Start your day as a clean sheet of paper.
I hate to sound cheesy, but turn that obstacle into an opportunity. Whatever that obstacle is, make it an opportunity for you to put something in perspective and put it in a positive way. See what you can do to improve yourself. I mean, trust me, there's so many obstacles that both Todd, Alex, everyone. I mean, I can't see all of you in the background, but all of you have incurred. But just make it into an opportunity for yourself to make yourself better and to prepare yourself for future chance and opportunities.
Thank you. We're getting more messages of gratitude. I will share those privately with you once we're off. But okay, so I'm going to ask one more question from each of you, which is, what is next for each of you? You know, we're starting a new year. You know, the next 6 weeks is like a big marathon, right? Like it's all the holidays. You go to Target, everything's there now, right? You know, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, all the holidays are in the store. So we know that the year is wrapping up. What is next for each of you professionally, creatively, for 2022?
I'll go first this time. Give Todd a chance to thank. Oh, first of all, I just got reelected as the administrative presiding judge. And believe it or not, I don't know if you can tell, but when I started this job, I had really dark hair, and it's caused a lot of grays in my head. And that's due to COVID and trying to operate during a COVID world and keep the courts open. But now we've come into a world now where I feel educating the community about our judiciary and educating the community about all the good that happens in this courthouse. All you hear and all people hear in the media and the business world is cases, bad cases, all bad. And there's so much good that has come in this courthouse that happens with specialty courts, veterans, drug courts, mental health courts, diversion centers, violence intervention dockets. I mean, there's just so many good things that, I mean, as the next 2 years, I hope to educate the community rather than hear the bad. And like, all we got is lazy judges, is all the good judges that we have and all the good things that are happening in this courthouse. So that's on a professional level. On a personal level, I don't know. I have a friend named Alex who told me I should write a book. So maybe we might be working and keep that creative idea of writing a book and seeing ideas that we can do. So that's me, at least.
Yeah, I would simply just like to continue to have the opportunity to do what I've been doing. Introducing new products to me is part of storytelling, and that applies to making movies as well, part of storytelling. Judge Sheehan and I had a lot of fun working on the last film, and we always keep our eyes and ears out for projects that might kind of cross my interest in law and film together to maybe do exactly what he's suggesting, is to enlighten and teach people more about the judicial system. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and there is absolutely a tremendous amount of good being done.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have 2 questions. We've got one here from Ann Nelson. She's one of our deans here at the university. She asks, can Cleveland become a tech hub?
My answer is absolutely. I don't see why not. I think one of the things with Zoom and remote working, I think we have more of an opportunity right now. The cost of living here is good based on what you get, you know, the proximity to the lake, professional sports, culture. So yeah, and I've always felt that it should be more of a town for the entertainment world. There's been continuous talk about building a sound stage, and that's needed. And there's a tax credit that helps these things along. So yeah, I think there's no reason why it can't be. It should be.
I even think, just to add on to that, I think Cleveland has built their infrastructure that we do have the ability to be a tech hub, and it's just a matter of, you know, why Silicon Valley get it before us, right? But I think we've got such a, I love going around the country telling people about Cleveland. When they finally get here, no one wants to leave Cleveland. They love it. And despite all the bad PR we get, there's a lot of great in Cleveland. And I think we got to sell it. It needs to be sold bigger. Hopefully we will.
Thank you both so much. We do have other questions, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So Judge and Todd, if you don't mind sticking around for a minute, if it's okay. Otherwise, I do want to thank everybody for coming today. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who was part of our audience. Thank you to both the College of Law and the College of Business here at Cleveland State University. I'm Alex Sequoy. I am your host for this Best in Biz series, and stay tuned for our spring event. Thank you so much, and everybody have a wonderful week.
And Alex, thank you for organizing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you both. You've been amazing. You've been truly amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Judge.